Welcome to Planning Your Summer Food Service Program, Meal Service Training for Summer Food Service Sponsors hosted by the Oregon Department of Education Child Nutrition Programs. In this training, we will review information on different methods to provide meals, meal pattern requirements for the meals you serve, what to do with leftovers, meal service requirements, and food safety rules. Before ODE CMP approves this program application, a sponsor will have to indicate the method it will use to provide meals to children. Several factors such as the cost of food, the number of meals required, the type of meal service, the number and type of sites, community dietary preferences, and the facilities available at each site will influence the sponsor's choice. Sponsors may choose from several methods of providing meals. Sponsors may prepare and assemble their own meals, obtain meals from a school food authority, or obtain meals from a food service management company. Many sponsors choose to prepare their own meals, which provide them with maximum control over the quality of preparation. Depending on the facilities available at its sites, a sponsor may prepare meals at each site location or at a central kitchen. Preparing meals at the site requires that each site have adequate kitchen and storage facilities. Sponsors preparing meals at a central kitchen must decide how to distribute the meals from the central kitchen to the sites and safely deliver and store them until meal service. If sponsors choose not to prepare meals for sites, they may enter into an agreement to purchase meals from a school food service facility. Most schools have meal preparation and service facilities since they serve meals to children during the school year. Also, experienced school food service personnel are often available for summer jobs. Sponsors that wish to obtain SFSP meals from a school should contact the local superintendent of schools or the principals of local nonprofit private schools. SFA sponsors who participate in the NSLP or school breakfast program at any time during the year may substitute the meal pattern requirements of the NSLP and SBP for the summer food service meal pattern requirements for meals served at school sites. ODE CMP approval of this substitution is not required. However, meals served at non-school sites using the NSLP or school breakfast program meal pattern requirements requires ODE CMP agency approval. In the SFSP, the term Food Service Management Company is defined slightly different than in other child nutrition programs. In SFSP, this means any commercial enterprise or nonprofit organization with which a sponsor may contract for preparing unitized meals with or without milk for use in the program, or for managing a sponsor's food service operations in accordance with the limitations set forth in the program regulations on management responsibilities of sponsors. All SFSP sponsors may choose to contract with a food service management company or with a school to obtain their meals. Generally, sponsors may not contract with a school using a food service management company unless the school's request for proposal, invitation for bid, and or the contract with the food service management company include the provision of SFSP meals. Food service management companies and school food authorities contracting to prepare SFSP meals must provide unitized meals to the sponsor's sites, unless the ODE CMP has approved a waiver of the unitized meal requirement. The unitized meal requirement specifies that the meal components, except for milk or juice, must be packaged, delivered, and served as a unit. Milk or juice, which may be packaged and provided separately, must be served with the meal, and only such complete meals are reimbursable. Sponsors eligible to receive USDA foods donated commodities under the FSP include sponsors preparing meals on-site or at a central kitchen, sponsors purchasing meals from a school food authority that participates in the NSLP, and SFSA sponsors that procure the SFSP meals from the same food service management company that competitively provided their most recent NSLP and or school breakfast program meals. ODE CMP will provide information about currently available commodities to all eligible sponsors. Meal services can be operated by different sponsors at a site. However, the site may not exceed the maximum number of meals allowed under the regulations. For example, if a sponsor is approved to serve only lunch at a site, a different sponsor may be approved to serve breakfast or a snack at the same site, as long as the total number and type of meal services served at the site do not exceed the maximum allowed under the regulations. With ODE CMP approval, sponsors of open sites may serve up to 2 meals or 1 meal and 1 snack each day. Allowable meal combinations include breakfast only, lunch and snack, breakfast and lunch, breakfast and supper, snack only, supper only, breakfast and snack, supper and snack, or 2 snacks. With ODE CMP approval, camp or migrant site sponsors may serve up to 3 meals each day or 2 meals and 1 snack. Allowable meal combinations include breakfast, lunch, and supper, breakfast, lunch, and snack, lunch, supper, and snack, or any combination of meals and snacks that is less than the maximum number allowed. It is important for the success of an SFSP program to serve nutritious meals that meet meal pattern requirements and that are appetizing to children. Careful menu planning is necessary to meet this goal. The meal pattern requirements assure well-balanced meals that supply the kinds and amounts of foods that children require to help meet their nutrient and energy needs. The meal patterns establish the minimum portions of the various meal components that must be served to each child in order for the participating sponsor to receive reimbursement for each meal. You can find the SFSP meal pattern on ODE CMP's public website, located at the link on the slide. For a breakfast to be reimbursable meal, it must contain 1 serving of milk, 1 serving of a vegetable or fruit or full-strength juice, and 1 serving of grain or bread. A meat alternate is optional. For a lunch or supper to be a reimbursable meal, it must contain 1 serving of milk, 2 or more servings of vegetables and or fruits, 1 serving of grain or bread, and 1 serving of meat or meat alternate. For a snack to be a reimbursable meal, it must contain 2 food items. Each item must be from a different food component. However, juice cannot be served when milk is served as the only other component. Sponsors are not required to accommodate dietary preferences, but are encouraged to do so within the existing meal patterns. However, sponsors are required to make substitutions or modifications to the meal patterns for participants with disabilities who are unable to consume the regular program meals when such substitutions are supported by a statement from a recognized medical authority that includes the required alternate foods. Additionally, substitutions may be made if individual children are unable, because of medical or other special dietary needs, not disabilities, to consume the foods required by the meal patterns. Such substitutions may only be made when supported by a statement from a recognized medical authority that includes recommended alternate foods. Schools participating in SFSP or the Seamless Summer Option may offer a non-dairy milk substitute to a student with a medical or special dietary need other than a disability. Schools choosing to offer this option must follow a parent's request to have the milk substitute served to his or her child. Schools must receive a written request from a medical authority or parent guardian that identifies the student's medical or dietary reason for needing a milk substitute in order to serve the child that substitute. Any reasonable reason for requesting a milk substitute might be served will be acceptable. Only milk substitutes that meet USDA's nutrient requirements may be served in order to receive reimbursement for these meals. Schools that decide not to offer milk substitutions for children with medical or special dietary needs must communicate this decision to all households. For medical statement forms and guidance, as well as training on the use of the forms, please visit the links located on this slide. The meal patterns specify the minimum portion of each food component for each meal or snack. Because an infant's first-year dietary needs are based on individual development and may be more complicated than those for toddlers and other children, sponsors must receive prior approval from ODE CMP to serve meals to infants 1 year of age and younger. All meals served to infants must comply with the infant meal pattern requirements in the CACFP regulations. SFSP regulations allow for the adjusting of meal portion sizes for children ages 1 to 6 years old. The sponsor must demonstrate to ODE CMP that it can control portion sizes and follow the age-appropriate meal pattern requirements for children based off CACFP regulations. Because teenagers have greater food needs, sponsors may serve adult-sized portions to children aged 12 to 18 years old. Also, as a reminder, extra food may always be served to improve the nutrition of participating children, that is, in addition to the food necessary to meet the meal pattern requirements. Offer versus serve is a concept that applies to menu planning and meal service, which allows children to decline some of the food offered in a reimbursable breakfast, lunch, or supper, excluding snacks. The goals of offer versus serve are to simplify program administration and reduce food waste and cost while maintaining the nutritional integrity of the summer food service program meal that is served. All SFSP sites, regardless of location or type of sponsorship, may utilize offer versus serve. Although SFSP regulations indicate that offer versus serve is available only to school sponsors, FNS extended this option to non-school sponsors in October 2011. Utilizing Offer versus Serve does not preclude the sponsor from maintaining a nonprofit organization. Offer versus Serve is not required, but is at the option of the sponsor. For a meal to be eligible for reimbursement, all food components in the required minimum serving size must be offered. A food component is one of the food groups that comprise a reimbursable meal. Sites must always offer all the food components that comprise a reimbursable meal in at least the minimum required amounts. A food item is a specific food offered within the food components comprising the reimbursable meal. For example, separate half-cup servings of peaches and pears are two food items that comprise one component, the fruit and vegetable component. Offering two servings of the same food item is not permissible under Offer versus Serve in the SFSP. All food items offered must be different from each other. For example, a breakfast menu that includes a serving of milk, a serving of fruit, and two servings of toast is not a reimbursable meal under Offer versus Serve in SFSP because the toast is two of the same food item. Additionally, a larger food item that is worth two servings in weight, such as a 2-ounce muffin, counts as only one food item under Offer versus Serve in SFSP, not two. Offering different food items supports and encourages the practice of offering a variety of food choices for children, which increases the likelihood that children will select foods they prefer and reduces waste. Offer versus Serve is an option for sponsors, not a requirement. Sponsors must notify ODE CMP of their intention to utilize Offer versus Serve. State agencies may not institute a statewide ban on Offer versus Serve. However, specific sponsors or sites may be restricted from utilizing the option on a case-by-case basis. If ODE CMP denies the sponsor's request to use Offer versus Serve in SFSP, the sponsor may not appeal the decision. The sponsor may submit another request the next operating year. School sponsors that elect to use the NSLP or School Breakfast Program meal pattern and FSFAs offering seamless summer options are required to follow the Offer versus Serve requirements of NSLP and SPP. All non-school sponsors electing to use Offer versus Serve and schools participating in the Summer Food Service Program and electing to follow the SFSP meal patterns are required to follow the SFSP Offer versus Serve requirements. Due to the distinguishing nature of the SFSP and NSLP, including variations in settings and resources, the Offer versus Serve requirements in summer food are different from the Offer versus Serve requirements in NSLP. In order to ensure that children are receiving enough food to meet their nutritional needs, Offer versus Serve requirements in SFSP are as followed for breakfast. 3 food components are required for a reimbursable breakfast, including 1 serving of fruit or vegetable, 1 serving of bread alternate, 1 serving of fluid milk, and all food components listed above must be offered through at least 4 different food items for Offer versus Serve in Summer Food Service Program. The 4th food item offered can be a serving of fruit or vegetable, bread or bread alternate, or meat alternate. A child must take at least 3 of the 4 food items offered. When using Offer versus Serve for lunch or supper, 4 food components are required for a reimbursable lunch or supper. That would include 1 serving of meat alternate, 2 servings of fruit and or vegetables from 2 different food items, 1 serving of bread alternate, and 1 serving of fluid milk. All food components listed must be offered through at least 5 different food items for Offer versus Serve in the Summer Food Service Program. Lunch or supper Offer versus Serve requirements differ from breakfast in that a child must take at least 3 food components rather than items listed from the 5 food items offered. 3 food components are required for an adequate nutritious meal for children. All sponsors must plan, prepare, or order meals with the objective of providing 1 meal per child at each meal service and must ensure that entire meals and food components are not often left over and unusable. Sponsors should minimize the amount of waste and unusable leftovers. Some suggestions for avoiding loss, or at least reducing the amount of loss, are: sponsors should be monitoring site reports on the number of attending children and the number of delivered meals to reduce waste and cost. A limited number of second meals served as a unit can be claimed for reimbursement as long as the total number of second meals does not exceed 2% of first meals served by the sponsor for all sites during the claiming period. Extra meals can be transferred, if allowed by the local health code, from a site with too many meals to a site with a shortage, keeping in mind that meals in excess of the receiving site's approved meal level are not reimbursable. Sponsors may designate a sharing table or stations where children may return whole items that they choose not to eat, provided that this is in compliance with local and state health and safety codes. These items are then available to other children who may want additional helpings. This practice may be facilitated by serving meal components so that they can be easily recycled. For example, if sandwich halves are wrapped separately, a child can return an uneaten half to the sharing table. Please check with your local health department or food service codes regarding sharing tables. Where equipment is available, complete meals and non-perishable components that remain on a sharing table can be stored under refrigeration for subsequent service. Please note that all recycled food items must be stored in accordance with local health codes and must be documented. The form of the food should be suitable to the age of the children so that it can be easily consumed within the meal service period. For example, if fruit is cut into smaller pieces, it is easier for young children to eat. Keep in mind that the safety of the leftover meals must be maintained. Meals or components that are transported or shared must be kept in compliance with all local health and safety standards. When it's not feasible to reuse leftovers or store food, FNS encourages sponsors to consider donating it to nonprofit organizations working to address hunger in the community, such as homeless shelters, food banks, and food pantries. Sponsors also may choose to send leftover meals or food home with children. Sponsored policies relating to food donations must comply with state and local health and sanitation codes. Although donated meals, including non-reimbursable meals or meal components sent home with children, may not be claimed for reimbursement in the SFSP, food donation avoids unnecessary waste and can save expensive disposal and storage costs. Additionally, by collaborating with other hunger organizations, sponsors can expand the reach of these important programs and build networks that better serve the community. As a result of the Department's Food Recovery and Gleaning Initiative of 1997, a best practice manual was created which highlighted measures to provide unused food to needy organizations. In addition, the Let's Glean toolkit was developed as a resource guide on food recovery programs for businesses, community-based organizations, private citizens, and public officials, and describes some of the food recovery activities taking place at that time and suggestions for new efforts. These publications can be found in the links located on the slide. If a site chooses to purchase additional foods with SFSP funds, the food must be a credible food under the meal pattern requirements. Expenditures for foods that may not be served as part of the reimbursable meal based on the SFSP meal patterns are not allowable costs. Condiments served with a credible food are exempt from this restriction. Sites wishing to serve additional foods that do not meet SFSP meal pattern standards must use non-program funds. Sites with additional funds available are encouraged to use the funds to improve the reimbursable meals served by using fresher, healthier, more nutrition products such as fresh fruits and vegetables, lean meats, and unprocessed cheeses. In addition to serving meals that meet meal pattern requirements, sponsors must comply with the following rules when serving meals at each of their sites. Serve the same meal to all children. This means all children receive a meal meeting the meal pattern requirements, not that all meals must be identical in every component. Except where permitted by ODE-CMP, ensure that children eat all meals on site. ODE-CMP allows items from the fruit-vegetable component of the meal pattern to be taken off-site. However, sponsors should allow this only at sites where there is enough staff to monitor this practice. Site personnel must supervise all children on the site while they are eating. Ensure that all children in attendance at the site receive one meal before any child is served a complete second meal or any adult meals are served. Adhere to local health and sanitation regulations. Make adequate arrangements for food service during inclement weather if meals are usually served at an outdoor site. This could include an alternate indoor site, a shady spot for hot days, or discontinuation of the meal service. Serve meals during the times of meal service submitted on the site information sheet and approved by ODE-CMP. ODE-CMP must approve any changes in meal service times. Meals must be consumed on-site in order to be eligible for reimbursement, unless the meal is served on a field trip with proper notification to ODE-CMP or off-site consumption as otherwise approved by FNS. In extenuating circumstances, sponsors may allow off-site consumption of meals as long as meals taken off-site are not claimed for reimbursement. Failure to meet this congregate feeding requirement results in the disallowance of meals and may lead to a determination of serious deficiency of the sponsor's operation of the program. However, sponsors may allow a child to take one fruit, vegetable, or grain item off-site for later consumption without prior ODE-CMP approval, provided this is in compliance with state and local health and sanitation codes. The food item taken off-site must be from the child's own meal or left on a shared table by another child who do not want it. Sponsors should only allow an item to be taken off-site if they have adequate staffing to properly administer and monitor the site and ensure that issues, particularly related to food safety and program integrity, do not arise. ODE-CMP has been permitted to approve SFSP sponsors to serve suppers in place of lunches in certain circumstances, including where an area is eligible for the program, but sites, meal preparation facilities, or staff are not available for a lunch meal service, or an organization has developed late afternoon or evening programs for children in low-income areas to keep them occupied in the summer months, but do not have sufficient resources to provide children with meals. Therefore, ODE-CMP may approve a sponsor to serve a supper in place of a lunch where it is feasible and appropriate. Except for camps and migrant sites, sponsors are not allowed to serve a supper and a lunch at the same site. Sponsors have the discretion to serve meals to anyone. However, only meals served to children may be claimed as reimbursable meals. Meals served to adults must be reported differently than those served to children, depending on the classification of the adults served as either a program or non-program adult. Program adults work directly with the meal service at the site as either volunteers or paid employees. Meals may be served free to adults who meet this definition. These meals may not be claimed for reimbursement as a reimbursable meal, but may be counted as legitimate operating costs. Non-program adults do not work in any direct way with the meal service at the site, such as a parent or guardian. Sponsors have the option to serve meals to non-program adults at no charge or charge a fee for the meal. The cost of the meals served to non-program adults may be counted as part of the sponsor's operating costs only if the adult pays, or non-program funds cover the full cost of the meal and the money received is reported as income to the program. If meals are served to non-program adults, sponsors must either charge the adults at least the full cost of the meal or use other non-program funds to cover the cost of these meals. When using non-program funds to cover the cost of these meals, the sponsor may include those funds as program income and pay for these meal costs from its nonprofit food service account. When a sponsor chooses to serve meals to adults, the following rules must be observed. All children must be fed first. Income from the sale of adult meals and non-program funds used to pay for adult meals must be documented as income to the program to offset documented costs. And meals served to children, including second meals, program adults, and non-program adults, must be counted and recorded separately on the daily meal count form. The calculation of meal costs should be based on the full cost of producing the meal, for example, food, supplies, labor, and other costs incurred by the sponsor. Sponsors also should include the value of the USDA foods used to prepare the meal, or this value may be based on the current year annual entitlement per meal value of USDA foods. Serving family-style meals can help children develop good eating habits through the personal example provided by supervising adults. Camp and closed enrolled sites offer the best setting for implementing family-style meals, provided that adults are available to assist children during the meal and staff and children are together for an extended period of time to provide a relaxed, stable environment conducive for teaching good eating habits. Family-style meal service should not be used at other types of sites. If a family-style meal service is allowed by ODE-CMP at camp and closed enrolled sites, sponsors must ensure that enough food is placed on each table to provide minimum portions of all required components for all children at the table and to accommodate program adults supervising meal service at the table if they eat with the children. Some amount of each required component is placed on each child's plate and at least the minimum regulatory portion is offered to the child. This practice may be particularly appropriate when unfamiliar foods are being introduced. And when the full portion required by the regulations is not initially served to children, supervising adults must assume the responsibility of actively encouraging the child to accept service of the full portion during the course of the meal. For more information on how to properly implement a family-style meal service, please review the family-style training located at the link on the slide. Sponsors are required to notify ODE-CMP of all field trips that affect the time or location of meal service. Although formal approval of the alternate meal service is not a federal requirement, whenever sponsors plan field trips that may affect the time or location of meal services, ODE-CMP must be informed. Sponsors also advised to notify the food service vendor in advance of any trips, if applicable. It may be helpful for sponsors to provide a calendar of scheduled trips with a program application if field trips are scheduled in advance. Sponsors must list the dates of field trips in the site info sheet in CMP Web. If there are any changes in scheduled field trips, sponsors must submit a revised site info sheet to include the field trip changes. If ODE-CMP is not notified prior to the field trip, meals served may be considered consumed off-site and may not be reimbursed. Sponsors serving meals off-site also must carefully ensure the safety and quality of the meals by using adequate storage equipment to transport them. Sponsors must establish meal times for each site and provide this information to ODE-CMP. Therefore, when applying to participate in the program or providing annual updates to program information, sponsors must provide ODE-CMP with information regarding the times of the meal service at each site, but are not required to ensure that specific time periods elapse between the meal services. However, when establishing meal times, sponsors must ensure that if offering a breakfast and a lunch, the breakfast meal service is not offered after lunch. A breakfast meal is not eligible for reimbursement if it is served after a lunch meal. There are no regulations restricting meal service on weekends. Therefore, sponsors are allowed to serve meals through SFSP on the weekends with ODE-CMP approval. In addition, all sites participating in the program must arrange for delivery if the meals are not prepared at the site and arrange for storing the meals according to standards prescribed by local health authorities until mealtime. If the meals are not prepared on-site, ODE CMP will not approve meal service at the site unless either meals can be delivered no more than 1 hour before the beginning of the meal service or proper facilities exist on-site for storing the food. If you have any questions, please contact your assigned child nutrition specialist. Thank you for participating in the meal service training for the Summer Food Service Program. If you have any questions, please contact your assigned child nutrition specialist. We greatly appreciate the work that you do to fuel Oregon's future.